Hi everybody. This video is going to be about my 40 breeder that is as of yet unoccupied and still cycling in. So why are we looking at my 125, do you ask? First of all, it's a pretty tank, and my Synodontis Eupterus right there is just a cool fish, and I like looking at him, and I'm sure you do too, especially in the roots there. He looks all beautiful and gorgeous. More importantly, I have made a decision about this tank, and I'm going to make a small change to it. I do have an elephant nose in here somewhere. Of course, he's not coming out now that we're looking for him. He's right in there. Oh, no, that's one of my clown loaches. I'm sorry. Anyway, I do have an elephant nose in here, and I like this substrate. This substrate is Carib Sea, and it is Floramax. Now, the reason I like it is because I have planted tanks. I like the way it looks. I like the way it helps my plants. It's really good substrate. However, it's very coarse substrate. It's very, very lightweight material, but it is coarse nonetheless. And elephant nose fish have their lower lip, you can call it a proboscis. I don't know if that's technically a proboscis or not. But the little lower lip that gives them their name is a very tender part of their body, very sensitive instrument that they look for food. They're an electrical fish, and they actually sense electrical fields. So where they live in the wild is either very, very soft, sandy substrate. There he is. Or it is actually a silty substrate. So we're talking, soft as baby powder. And I've just come to realize that I just think that the substrate in here is just a little too coarse for him. He never really seems to forage on the bottom as much as I would expect him to. Now, I have no experience with this fish, so I don't really know what normal behavior may or may not be. But I suspect if they've evolved an organ for rooting around through the substrate, it's something I would imagine they would do on a fairly frequent basis, and I don't see a lot of it with this one. As you can see him right now, he's not. He's rooting around in the leaves of the bushes. He's not putting on weight the way you would think one of my fish would put on weight, the way they're fed. On a little side note, do you like my little Otocinclus tree here? I always have Otos lying all over the leaves of this narrow leaf temple plant. I love it. Can never have too many Otos. So, I've decided that the soft substrate is necessary for this fish. This, as lightweight as this stuff may be, I really just think it's too coarse for it. And whether it is or it isn't, I'm not taking the chance anymore. I always say that the welfare of your animals should come first. You got to set your tank up for the fish's needs. And I kind of knew when I went into this that I was throwing the dice, that he may not find that substrate suitable. I was hoping, simply because of the lightweight material, the lightweight nature of it, it would be no problem for him. I think it's going to be a problem for him, though. I'm not satisfied with his progress, and he just doesn't look like he's behaving normally. So what we're doing is we're going to move him over here into my new 40 breeder. And a lot of you know I've been cycling this tank in. It's been a big mystery of what it's going to eventually develop into. I do know what it's going to develop into. It's going to develop into something that, if you can just see those fish right there, there was your little sneak peek. Those are going to be the key fish that are going in this tank. It does have a theme. Those of you who are familiar with my tanks know I don't really do the true biotope. I find that very limiting, and I don't want to do that. It stifles my creativity. But we're going to do a theme, and I don't want to give away any secrets yet, but we know it's going to have black sand in the bottom, and we know it's going to have an elephant nose in there. Now, the elephant nose is an African fish, and that is going to be at least one of the fish that is going to be outside of the overall theme of this tank. And again, I don't want to really spoil any secrets. I've been doing a really good job of keeping it secret, but I'm well underway. So why are we looking at all this video and listening to me go on and on and on and on about all this stuff? It's because I got the damn thing in there ready to prep the tank. I have got my substrate sitting right there on the floor ready to fill it up. And can you see all those little white specks? I have a bajillion detritus worms in there. Now, the only thing I can think of is that the floating plants you see there, and I also had a bunch of floating water sprite in here that had been removed from, the water sprite came from that big clump down there in my 125, And this temple plant here is actually the top of that piece. You can actually see right there in the center, that chopped off part is the top of this, what you see floating in the tank, and that's eventually going to get planted in this tank. So is it possible that there were detritus worms on something that was already above the water? And is it possible that there were detritus worms on floating plants in my 125? Either that or they appear by magic, because I've not done anything to this tank. I haven't done any filter changes, I'll grant you, but no matter how nasty a filter gets, worms don't just get in a filter. They've got to come from somewhere. So I can only assume that me just sort of innocently chucking some plants in there, I've now introduced these damn worms in here. So my dilemma is, do I start over? Do I sterilize this tank? Do I strip it down and then begin the whole cycle process over? And believe me, I'm not going to sit through it again. I'll force it this time and we'll have it ready to have fish in there next week. Or do I just say, you know what, I'm going to have detritus worms no matter what I do, and just give it a rough and ready cleaning, drain it as best I can, throw some peroxide around in there, and then, you know, rock and roll, fill it up, and get going again, because by tonight I can have sand in there and I can have some plants planted. Not sure about what I'm going to do as far as hardscape yet. I don't know what I want to do with woodwork, and I don't know what I want to do with rock work, and I'm not sure how it's all going to go together with the plants I want to put in there just yet. So again, still coming together, but we're making progress. So don't know if this video is going to go any further than this. Right now I'm just going to go ahead and say goodbye and ask you to subscribe if you're not already. I do a lot of off-the-cuff stuff like this, spur of the moment, as mood strikes me to do something and I figure I would like to get it on video. I always tell everybody you're all excuse me, you're all just sort of on the journey with me, and you're following my learning process, and this is all part of it. So this is what we're going to do tonight. And on a final note, all that green all over my woodwork in there, and now you can see all the little green specks growing on the glass in the back. That's the same green stuff I have in my gourami tank that I've been battling forever. You can see it growing all over this rock, and I'm sure this rock is where it came from, because I did not properly sterilize that rock before I put it in there, and I collected that rock from the stream across the street from my house. So that's one of my dilemmas. If I put rocks in my tank, do I go out and buy rocks? That seems odd to me. I've never bought rocks for any of my aquariums. Then again, all of my aquariums also have unwanted algae, but I have identified that algae. I've been doing some research on it, and to say that algae is algae from hell is a terrible, terrible understatement and an injustice to the real magnitude of that kind of algae. So I'm working on getting some ideas together to start talking about that in a video. But the point to all of that is, do I really worry about these detritus worms all that much? All of my tanks are going to get them eventually, apparently, anyway. The detritus worms are harmless. They actually serve as a little bit of a cleanup crew on the bottom. And some fish actually eat them, and as long as you don't let their numbers get out of control, it's not really doing anything except adding a tiny, tiny little amount of bioload. So again, I just don't know. I don't know whether I want to just go ahead and empty this and fill it back up and say, to hell with it, we're going to have worms in here anyway, so why bother? We're probably ultimately going to have that algae in here as well, because it transmits very easily, and I don't have like real strict sterilization processes with my nets, and you know, that's why it's in all of my tanks. It's not in all of my tanks though, and I do have some thoughts on that, so that will be in my video when I get talking about all that stuff. So maybe you'll see some more of this. Maybe we're going to do some before and after. Maybe this will be the end of the video. If it is, I would say thank you for watching. If not, I'll see you in just a moment.